Hey everyone, welcome to Broadband Deployment News and some breaking news. It looks like the FCC has released their latest version of the Broadband Map, the FCC National Broadband Map, and would have the latest Fabric data in it. I'll be right back to show you why I think that's the case. Thanks for joining me. Rick Husey here with Broadband Deployment News. Normally on a Tuesday, I would be doing a Tech Tuesday at 3 o'clock live if we're going to do one. But today I've been watching the Broadband Map because we've heard from various sources that the FCC was going to release that today. I never saw any kind of an announcement from them, but I've been watching the map to see if anything had changed, and then I noticed something changed. I don't know if it had changed prior to me trying something, but I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So if I look at the map, so this is the map as I was looking at it earlier today and prior to today. So as you look at this is a particular location I just happened to pull up because I was curious what this would look like if it did change after we got the data. So you'll see that something's definitely changed. So I did not see any kind of public announcement yet, press release from the FCC, anything in the email that I'm subscribed to, but I'm expecting that announcement to come out tomorrow because it does look like they've made the change. So if you look here, this is not the change. So as we look here, we see date as of June 30th, 2022. Then we see last updated 5/23/2023. I think that last update is probably new, changes to what service providers have been, locations have been challenged where it's updated by the service provider or by the FCC, but not Fabric data. I believe this is the date of the Fabric that this map that I'm looking at right now is based on, June 30th. So that was the first Fabric that came out, and internet service providers then provided their availability where they could provide service on top of that, and that is what created the current map that we're looking at here. And then a new Fabric came out at the end of December. And then between December and the 1st of March, internet service providers, that's of this year, internet service providers started providing any updates to that to their availability data where they could provide service. And that has not yet been, well, some of that, I guess maybe some of that availability data might have been incorporated, I don't know, but certainly the Fabric has not. So this is what I was looking at earlier prior today, and then all day today I was looking at. It's like, I guess I haven't done anything yet. But then I decided to throw it into a incognito window and see what I got. I tried several times refreshing this, but I put it in an incognito window, and lo and behold, it showed me a different date. So then I went ahead and I put it in Edge, Microsoft Edge, because I don't usually use that. And when I did that, you will notice December 31st, 2022. So this would be non-cached kind of stuff. So again, kind of looking at the difference here, as I go back into, right now I'm looking at the version of the map that is June 30, 2022. And the reason I went to this site is when I was looking at the broadband funding map the other day, which is a new map that the FCC put out that shows funding for various areas. When I was looking at it, I noticed that there were some funding areas here in Kennesaw, Georgia, which I know this area pretty well, and I know that this is served by several locations, excuse me, all these locations are served by a couple of providers. So for example, I click here, I've got, this is what you see generally is AT&T and Comcast they're both providing gig service in this area. But I saw this one location that was unserved. And there were a couple of locations right here that were showing that they were getting RDOF funding. And I was like, why would they be getting RDOF funding? All these places have gig service from two providers. So anyway, I remember this location. I was curious to see if any of this would change. And I did notice that this was showing as unserved, which I also found interesting because, obviously it's surrounded by all of these, and it's not showing Charter or AT&T. So I thought, well, maybe they made a mistake and didn't include it. And I thought, well, it'd be weird that two providers would make a mistake. And then I thought later that maybe this just wasn't a serviceable location. So I went to the map, Google map. This is it here. Oh, by the way, this is what it looks like on the broadband funding map. So the broadband funding map looks very much like the broadband map itself. I don't know why the FCC has two maps. They should really incorporate the broadband funding information into the National Broadband Map. But this is on the funding map. You see up here, broadband funding map. And again, you see the same data. So you see this location is showing as unserved. But then you had these two locations, again, that were showing that they were rural RDOF, Rural Digital Opportunity Fund recipients or would be from some provider, which again doesn't make any sense. But this is also dated June 30th. Now it's interesting here on the data version here, it says when you roll over it says broadband availability data version. So that is not the Fabric version. So I'm assuming though that what I'm looking at here is the Fabric version, because again, this is June 30th, 2022. I'm assuming this is really the Fabric version too, because it says the same thing, June 30th, 2022. I don't think this would be availability because service providers had not put their availability in yet. They basically had from June 30th, it wouldn't be, because they had from June 30th, 2022 until I think the 1st of September was the first time, that was their initial upload of their broadband availability. Well, maybe they're saying, I'm sorry, I'm all confused. Maybe they're saying broadband availability means it's a broadband serviceable location. So I'm sure that's what they mean. This is a broadband serviceable location, meaning this is on the Fabric, and this has been deemed to be a broadband, all of these have been deemed to be a broadband serviceable location by CostQuest, the vendor that the FCC used to determine that. So these are all broadband serviceable locations. This one in particular, for some reason, is showing that there's not an internet service provider. And these two, for some really odd reason, are showing that they're supposed to get RDOF funds. And again, that doesn't make any sense. So I wanted to look at this closer today. I went in and I said, I wonder if that wasn't really a BSL. And then when I looked at it on the satellite, I thought, wow, it's definitely a different roof line. So as I scroll in, it's like, maybe it's a parking garage. So I went in further, but then I saw, wow, they've got several different businesses that are showing up here. And I went in further. And as you go in further, it's like, oh, no, that's definitely not a parking garage. So this 1300 address here, and you can see it from that there, that definitely should be a broadband serviceable location. So going back to Microsoft Edge here, which again had no cached information. Let me get back there. We now see, as we look at this is the same location here, but now you see several locations. So somebody updated, this was updated in the Fabric, and you can see your date as of December 31st, 2022. So this would be your broadband Fabric. Somebody updated it, so now we've got multiple dots here on the map of being locations that should have broadband, including this particular address here. Let me check this one. So that one is 1300. They're all 1300. That says Building 4. They probably all say the same thing, but actually they don't. That one said Building 4. This one says Building 3. Building 2. There we go, Building 6. So I guess these are units, basically. They don't look like, this one looks like one building, but these would be, I guess, separate units, but they have maybe that's how their address is listed. These, for some reason, still just have one dot on it. I'm not sure what kind of, maybe this is just one business. So this would be multiple businesses within a building. We can take a quick look at that. Go back here to my map here, scroll in. These actually don't look like one business. These look like apartments. Maybe, yeah. I would say that's an apartment. There's somebody out. It could be a business, but there's somebody out on their porch, so to speak. So that's kind of odd that would be that these would be just one. So I would have expected to have seen multiple units on this if that's the same, if I'm looking at the correct building there, which I think I am. So anyway, so that's one way that I said, well, this data does look like it is now the updated Fabric data because these have now been corrected. It's possible, I suppose, that this particular building was under construction at the time, way back in June of last year, that they did not yet were not yet considered broadband serviceable locations, but I don't think so. I think it was just a mistake. It was just marked as not. Maybe the internet service providers were not marking that down for some reason. But now you see that as I click on all of these, it does show. Well, that's interesting. So this one is showing Comcast. This is showing AT&T and Comcast. Comcast. It's possible that AT&T, when they uploaded their information, said, oh, well, we don't provide service to that building, but they're not supposed to do that, I don't think, depending on how unless there's some kind of a exclusive service from, let's say, Comcast on this particular building or unit. Really, you would expect to see both of them, just like you would, I'm assuming here when I click this. That's AT&T and Comcast. AT&T and Comcast. So those are all going to be the same. So I'm not sure about that. So they're still maybe trying to figure this out and get that right. So I think we do have a later version of the map. The other thing that, the other area I was looking at, which hasn't changed in this case, was if I go here, I looked at this is the national map. I looked at this location the other day. Again, we're looking here at June 30th, 2022. When I was looking at the funding map, and I thought this was odd because I had 3 locations that were showing that they were able to get charter at a gig service, only 3 as I looked at them. And then you see those, but then these others that are right near them, really not, and it don't seem any more difficult to serve. I've got here, I don't have charter listed. Here I don't have charter listed. Any of these, right? So these are all red. So these, I've selected wired only on these. So these don't have, it's not taking into account SpaceX and T-Mobile, or, well, certainly SpaceX since they're over the 25. So it's not taking that into account. So I'm looking at fixed wired service only. And it's got these 3 locations having charter. So it's possible that charter is there, but this to me looks like a mistake too, that somehow they either listed these by mistake or they didn't list some other locations that they have. I don't know why they would have 3 locations here. That just seems really odd. Now I checked, even though this says June 30th, I checked the current map, the one that says December, and this has not changed. So this has stayed the same. And on the funding map, again, what brought me here, another anomaly on the funding map that I saw originally when I pulled up the funding in this area, I saw that all of these areas that are showing yellow are broadband funding through RDOF. So that is not one. So here you see all of these say that they get RDOF. And I thought it was odd that all of these show RDOF and this one does not, and maybe some of these don't either. And these are the 3 odd ones that show that they get service from charter and the others don't. So this one, let's see. Yeah, it's like if I click this one, I think that's one of them. If I look for availability, see, this one shows charter. This one shows charter as well. And I think this was the other. That one shows charter, but again, none of these do. So none of this has changed. Even though I'm looking at the funding map now. So that's the other thing I noticed is when I pull up the funding map still shows that the latest version they have, when you look at the version, shows June 30th. So this will be updated later, probably pretty quickly. The FCC, once they announce the broadband map that I was looking at, that's dated December 2022, I think they'll update this. And then you'll see like a correction in that area in Kennesaw. But again, I don't know. This is not corrected on the broadband map. This is still showing on the broadband map that these locations. And let's see, did I pull that up? And let me see if I've got that pulled up in here. No, I've just got. Oh yeah, here it is. So this again, you're looking right here. This is December 30th, 2022. So on the broadband map, this has not changed. These 3 locations are still showing that they are served by charter, and all of these are showing that they are not served. But then again, this change as of December 31st, 2022, I think is just the fabric. I think the FCC has been updating the availability, let's call it availability, as far as can somebody get broadband. So these are broadband serviceable locations, and these, the FCC is saying that these people can actually get broadband from charter, but these don't seem to be updated at this point. So whatever mistake this is, if it is a mistake, whether more of these are supposed to be green or these are not supposed to be green, that's not been updated in the latest version of the map. I just looked at 2 locations that I happened to look at the other day. So in short, it does appear that the FCC has updated the map. There's been no communication that I can tell that I've seen as far as on their website, on their latest headlines and documents, and I haven't received. I checked, I got an email not long ago, like maybe an hour ago, that had, just a feed of their latest updates and documents, and that didn't contain it either. So I think it's been published, but has not yet been announced. Now, whether anything will change between now and the time they announce it, I don't know. I don't think it would, because I think basically what they were doing is they're uploading the latest Fabric data, dated the end of December 2022, and that's the change. So this is the information now that the NTIA is supposed to use to determine how much each state gets from the BEAD program, Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program. There's $42.45 billion in there. And the NTIA is going to look at this data from this FCC map, which includes all of the broadband serviceable locations in the country, and then all of the that are supposed to be there. We know that there are going to be some errors here and there. We just don't know how significant. Some people will be looking at this now and trying to figure out how much has been fixed. I haven't been digging in. I've just been picking pieces here and there. But there are people in various states that are in broadband offices and in the Broadband Mapping Coalition and others that have been really looking at these maps and saying, okay, there's a big block of people that are missing here, and there's a location here where this internet service provider says they're providing gig service, but it's really DSL. So they've been trying to get all that data corrected as far as the actual locations, the broadband serviceable locations, and then the availability that the internet service providers overlaid on top of the locations. But in any event, this is the map that the NTIA is going to look at to then determine how many broadband serviceable locations there are in the United States, how many of those are unserved across the United States, and then the same for each state. And then based on the percentages for each state, that's going to determine how much each state gets out of this program. Each state gets a minimum of $100 million, and then depending on how many unserved locations they have compared to the entire United States and U.S. territories, then they will get a certain amount on top of that. And we expect that Texas will get the most. And we're talking about over $1 billion for Texas. And we expect some will get not much more than $100 million, the minimum. Maybe somebody like Rhode Island, maybe Delaware. I think there were a couple that were not much over what their minimum would be, because they're just smaller states. They have fewer rural areas and fewer people, basically, fewer unserved locations compared to the rest of the country. So all of that's going to be determined. And then the NTIA said they will come out with that information by June 30th. So that is the next milestone that we're looking for. And again, I think that this is what they're going to be using. So look for an announcement, a late announcement from somebody else, like the FCC tomorrow. So unless I'm wrong and I jumped the gun here, which I don't think I am, I think we're seeing the first evidence that the FCC map has been updated. Thanks for joining me. If this was helpful, or if you're like, wow, I found out first from Rick, go ahead and give me a like on the video. I'd appreciate that. And if you're not subscribed, click the subscribe button and click the little bell to be notified. You'll find the subscribe button down in the YouTube video in the right-hand corner or down under the video. And again, you'll find the little bell to be notified under the video as well. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you next time for Broadband Deployment News. Bye-bye.